Hello, it's Tuesday Live. Thanks for joining us. Omini Odan is my name. Nigeria, a multi-ethnic and religious nation, is endowed with abundant human and natural resources to advance development. However, issues such as insecurity, ethnicity, especially agitations, or clamor for resource control, state creation, and restructuring have slowed down development. It is to make a headway that the 1994-1995 Constitutional Conference, the 2005 National Political Reform Conference, and the 2014 National Conference were held. The agitation still persists, revolving issues that include devolution of powers, demand for affirmation for vulnerable group, land tenure system, resource control, and local government autonomy. These, the All Progressives Congress APC says, will not be swept under the carpet and has swung into action in its commitment to restore good governance in Nigeria. The El-Rufai Committee on True Federalism has come up with 25 recommendations that are widely viewed as unique, particularly on matters of state creation, merger of states, state merger, and devolution of power and secular status. This is also thumbs up for the All Progressives Congress political will in addressing the matters which analysts believe will deepen democracy in building a better Nigeria. What next? How soon will Nigerians get to enjoy these proposals? Answers after this background report by Timothy Yusuf.
That has dominated public discourse in Nigeria more than every other issue in recent time is the debate for and against the restructuring of Nigeria. Many Nigerians across professions, religions and ethnicity appear to believe that the current Nigerian federal structure needs restructuring. These days, it is not uncommon to hear Nigerians say that the country will never move forward or develop if restructure of the Nigerian Federation do not take place. Some are even saying that unless restructure takes place, the unity of Nigeria is at risk. According to experts and public commentators, these agitations by individuals, socio-cultural groups and geopolitical associations for the restructuring of Nigeria are worrying signs that all is not well. However, successive administrations, at least until now, never saw the need to give concrete or serious consideration to such calls. But what does restructuring mean as being canvassed by the agitators?
I believe in the indivisibility of Nigeria as a sovereign entity. And I do not think that anybody who is calling for restructuring is calling for the division of Nigeria, because we know what we gain by being such a large mass. But we will not gain that if the internal structures are not understood and accepted by all Nigerians. It's not a process that's aimed at tinkering with tinkering with the structure of the country in terms of either asking some regions to go or some states to go. No, it's let's go back to those basics that were captured in those years and towards which we work to achieve a balanced federation. That's the essence.
Some agenda items, according to them, any restructuring exercise must include devolution of powers to the states, reduction in federal government exclusive list, which is at present 87 in favor of concurrent list, which is 15. The proponents also canvassed developing indigenous model of fiscal federalism, reduction in number of federating units, administrative restructuring, leaner bureaucracy, local government autonomy, resource control and state police. The Buhari's administration first gave indication that it was not actively opposed to restructuring, when in a statement last year noted that such an exercise must follow due process, including a referendum where necessary. Therefore, in July last year, the governing All Progressives Congress APC constituted a committee to articulate its position on true federalism as agitations increase. The committee, headed by Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, and 4 other governors as members, held 13 public hearings across the country, received comments and memoranda from diverse members of the public. At the end of its assignment, the committee, on Thursday, January 25th, submitted its report to the national chairman of the party in Abuja. Some of the key recommendations of the El-Rufai Committee are resource control, making local government an affair of states, constitutional amendment to allow merger of states, devolution of powers, fiscal federalism, state police, state courts of appeal, referendum, and independent candidacy. The chairman of the APC, while receiving the report, promised that the decision of the party will be ready by the middle of February after the report must have passed through various structures of the party and thereafter be subjected to the National Assembly for legislative action.
Items have been identified for movement from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. Minimum wage and industrial arbitration should be on the concurrent list. That way, every state can determine its minimum wage. All minerals, including oil and gas, that are onshore will be vested in the states of the Federation. However, all offshore oil shall remain absolutely vested in the government of the Federation. Recommending that policing should be both federal and state.
These are essential ingredients of true federalism. That each state, each federating unit should be allowed to develop in its own way, at its own pace, and with the economic realities. Let's face it, that is true federalism. We must not start picking and choosing.
Democracy promotes participation, it promotes rule of law, it promotes accountability, it promotes consensus.
How far-reaching are the recommendations of the Governor Nasir El-Rufai Committee? How practicable are some of the proposals, especially that of proposed merger of states? And how far is the APC as a party willing to go to see through some of the recommendations? In Abuja, Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
Devolution of powers is the focus on Tuesday Live tonight, and Timothy Yusuf's report sets the tone for discussion tonight on the program. As you know, as is the practice on the program, is an audience participated program. At some point, the lines will be open, you'll be through to the studio, and when you get through to the studio, go straight to your point, and while doing this, you turn down the volume of your set to avoid the hallback. The focus, once again, is devolution of powers in Nigeria, a thorny issue which is getting towards resolution. I have tonight to sustain this discussion a full house, and at some point we'll be joining Kaduna from Abuja. Dr. George Mugalu is the National Auditor of the All Progressives Congress. Thanks for joining us on Tuesday Live.
My pleasure.
Honorable Al-Hassan Ado Dugowa, Chief Whip, House of Representatives.
Thank you for having me on the program.
My pleasure. And Ariyo Dare Atoyi, pro-democracy activist and a member of the People's Democratic Party.
Oh, thank you very much, myself.
Philip Agbese is a pro-democracy activist. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
And joining us from Kaduna is the Governor of Kaduna State, His Excellency Ahmed El-Rufai, and Chairman of the committee which is the focus on tonight. Thanks for joining us on today's Your Excellency.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, let me stay on you, Your Excellency. Without going too further, let's start this way. What really informed the setting up of this committee by the All Progressives Congress at this time?
Let's go back a little bit into history. Nigeria was a federation of three regions, the North, the West, and the East. And then we became four regions. And we had a constitution that was parliamentary in nature, but essentially the regions were the federating units, and it was the revenues from the regions that were contributed into a federal pot to run the federal government. That was the situation up until 1966. In 1966, the military took over, and based on their own training and their command and control structure, the process of unitarizing the Federation of Nigeria began. First with the creation of 12 states, after the repeal of the unification decree by General Ironsi. Since then, our federation has continued to be called a federal republic, in name only, but essentially it was a unitary state with a strong federal government and weak states. As more and more states were created, the resources available to run governments of the states became spreadly thin, and the states became even weaker. This is the main issue driving the call for restructuring, for resource control, for fiscal federalism, for devolution of powers, and all kinds of phrases that are used by various groups and people. It is in recognition of this that the All Progressive Congress, when campaigning for office in 2014 and 2015, made a commitment to look at the structure of the federation, to look at all the hues and cries over centralization of power in the federal government, to look at all past conferences, constitutional conferences and national conferences, review the recommendations, open the debate for Nigerians to contribute to these issues, and report back to the Nigerian people what steps need to be taken to rebalance our federation. This is why the APC Committee on True Federalism was established. It was a manifesto commitment of our party, but what was needed was to pull together the various opinions and the various strands all across Nigerian society on these various issues, hear the views of Nigerians, particularly young people, women, and other vulnerable groups that never had a chance to join the various conferences that were conclaves of the elite. This is what the party did. The committee was constituted under my humble chairmanship, 27 members, including 9 governors, including members of the House of Representatives. It was an inclusive committee. It was an APC committee, but it gave every opportunity to every Nigerian to contribute. And the result was the report of our committee, which was aptly summarized by Timothy before you asked me to speak. And I'm happy that many of my colleagues in the party, the member of the National Working Committee, Mr. George Magalu, and all political warhorse, and Honorable Ado Dogwa, the Chief Whip of the House of Representatives, are here to further elucidate on this. But this is what it's all about. We want to make our country work better. We want to rebalance the federation. We want Nigeria to work for everyone using the spirit of give and take.
You see, just to stay on you, just one question. Is this report presentation a finality?
Well, I don't know what you mean by a finality. Our committee is a committee of the APC. Even though we opened the platform for every Nigerian to contribute, it is a party committee. We've submitted a report to the party. The party organs will look at it and give their own decision. Then it will be available for the government to take further action. However, in our humble opinion, and this is why we took our time to not only submit a set of recommendations, all previous conferences contained recommendations. What is unique about the work of our committee is that we drafted bills covering the 24 areas where Nigerians had very strong views about the structure of the federation. We drafted bills, we made recommendations for executive action. These bills cover not only legislative and statutory amendments, but also constitutional amendments. So ultimately, nothing is final until the National Assembly takes these bills, panel beats them as they deem fit, and enacts them into law for the assent of the president or for the state houses of assembly to also concur if it is constitutional amendment. So it's not final. Nothing is final. Our committee's work is final, of course. We are done. We've given our report to the party, and I'm very grateful to our members for working so hard to produce something so comprehensive. But it is ultimately National Assembly that will determine whether this is final or not.
We'll get back to you. Back in Abuja, we'll have to strike a balance. I know His Excellency has recognized the members of APC. This is not an APC house. We're talking about Nigeria here. We have PDP here. We have a pro-democracy activist here. So getting to, let me talk with Ariodare Atoye. Given the analysis by the chairman of the APC True Federalism Committee, he gave us the genealogy of where we were and where we are now, and he has talked about 24 areas that was of major strong views by Nigerians for devolution, and they had 13 public hearings. Now my question to you is, as a political party, beyond any reason, does PDP believe in true federalism?
Thank you very much. Let me say emphatically that from the presentation of your report by Timothy, that was laid bare, starting from 2005 National Political Reform Conference. And you also recall that the most far-reaching conference ever held in this country on the need for us to deepen what the APC calls true federalism, that I would love to call restructuring, was actually held in 2014 under the administration of the PDP. There is something we have to get very clearly, and I'm happy that Governor Nasir El-Rufai is here with us. You see, there is what we call the spirit and letter of law. And what we have, the fundamental flaw that we have with the 1999 Constitution, is that it's a constitution of letter without the spirit of Nigerians, added to it, because the people must be involved in the process of constitutional making. And when you look into what APC is also doing currently, it's similar and akin to what the military also did by giving us that document, excluding Nigerians from the process, such that they think that they have the wisdom to be able to dictate to Nigerians what they think will be in the best interest of Nigerians. No, you don't build a nation like that. And at this point, I'm a young man, and I think we have to take the issue of nation building very seriously, not just because election is around the corner, simply because you really know very well, because APC has come to realize one thing, that for them to make any inroad in the southern part of Nigeria today, probably maybe in the middle belt, we have to talk about restructuring. They're feeling it and they're hearing it loud and clear. So we've seen this effort, and of course, it will become so very clear to Nigerians as we move ahead that the whole process that brought about this arrangement by the APC, which had true federalism, its own constitution, its own manifesto, I never said anything about it, including Malam Nasir El-Rufai. At a point in time, I talked about shut down argument over issue of restructuring or true federalism, whichever way. On January 1 this year, Mr. President himself, President Muhammad Buhari, actually talked about this issue, saying what we need is a process, not really issue of restructuring. Probably we will have been APC committee on the process so that we understand what APC means by process, not really restructuring, so that we can engage them, frontally. However, I think this exercise so far is a kind of a political game. For us in the PDP, we've seen through that. We know that it is just a ploy, just to galvanize the interests of Nigerians, especially from those who believe in restructuring. The National Assembly is very strategic when it comes to the issue of constitutional making amendment. They talked about House of Reps. I don't know if they have Senate committee members in that. And when you look at the way they've gone about the whole process, this is not how to do what you call it true federalism.
We'll get to that. But I love your analysis. Does PDP believe in true federalism?
Absolutely. You see, after the only where we had a problem, and I have to be very emphatic, was during the administration of a former president, late Yaradua of blessed memory, was immediately after they shut down the 1995 Political Reform Conference because of third term. When Yaradua came in, probably because of health issues and some other issues, they never revisited issue of restructuring, true federalism. Okay. So we had that interregnum in terms of actually engaging this issue further from where Obasanjo actually stopped. So when President Jonathan came, the agitations also continued. And at a point in time, he caved in. You see, one thing we have to...
you have established the point.
Yeah, we have to accept the fact that sometimes some of these, our leaders, you need to convince them about some of this argument. And he bought into it, and he set up a most far-reaching committee so ever in this country for us to have the 2014 confab. And it was painstaking, and Nigerians invested their spirit in it.
PDP stands for federalism.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll
Absolutely.
get to that. Now, he talked about APC making it an all-party affair. The chairman of the committee, the governor of Kaduna State, talked about consultations of and held 13 public hearings, and that they went across board. Now, to sustain one position, he had talked about the fact that APC did not consult. Now, let us make it this way. Was there a wide spectrum consultation, and who were consulted in all these public hearings?
Let me begin by saying that if we must talk about the Nigerian nation, we must be honest enough to remove politics from it, especially for very sensitive issues like this that has to do with the life of this nation. When APC set up this committee of credible Nigerians who have earned their reputations in their chosen field of training, we got them together and asked them to go around the country and get all the views of Nigerians. And that's why if you listen to Madam El-Rufai, they conducted public hearings across the 6 geopolitical zones. Memoranda came from all corners. If you read the report that was submitted to the party, had 4 volumes. I will avail you these 4 volumes so that you'll be able to appreciate the extent of work that was put in place. Nigerians of all walks of life, from various areas, civil society groups, individuals, youth organizations, persons with disability, everybody had the opportunity of airing their views. And I want to point out, if you remember the day we presented it to the public, a few days back at Sheraton, the secretary said something very fundamental. He said, what we have done is to collect the views of Nigerians, to put the views of the people together so that we can create a platform for further discussion. So that since it is a continuum, since it's a process, so that the views of people can still be accommodated. When these documents were presented to the public a few days back at Sheraton Hotel, some people who did not even participate in the 6 geopolitical zones came as groups, came as individuals, and still made further submissions. Like somebody came with a proposal there about referendum. It was accommodated. What we are doing now is the party is trying to own the paper, own the document, by passing this document through the party processes. Because we have organs in the party that we're going to pass these documents through. The party now owns it and then gives it to the executive. Let me tell you something that is very fundamental here. When you are talking about a document representing the views of Nigerians, take for example the National Assembly. How many are there? We have 109 senators and 300 and something House members in a nation of over 180 million people. But the truth still remains that these people who are in the National Assembly are representatives of the people of Nigeria because they are representing their various constituencies and they were all elected. So whatever document we have, whatever views of Nigerians we have collected, if in the process of trying to collect these views, over 8,000 Nigerians of different walks of life made formal presentations, some in person, some by documentations, I think that is quite encompassing. And it was taken around the 6 geopolitical zones to get the views together.
Is expressing is, yes, you consulted what? Were political parties consulted in this?
Those people, let's put it very clear. We must first of all acknowledge one fact, that this is the first time in the history of political development in this country that a political party will take a very sensitive issue as this and bring it to the fore.
Okay, let me hold you there. Now, Honorable Dogowa, the National Assembly is critical to this, and we heard the chairman of the committee say that it's not a finality. This document is a proposal to Nigeria. And talking about Nigeria is, if it goes to the party process, it will go maybe as a bill or as in whichever form to the National Assembly. What prospects? Let me take it from there. given the debate on ground already?
I think to start with, I have to personally and even institutionally, as a member of the leadership of the National Assembly, I will have to commend the leadership of the APC as a party, not just because it's a ruling or my own party, but as a political institution, I have to commend them for really setting this kind of pace. Like he has rightly said, this is like an unprecedented movement, the first time in the history of Nigerian political process, when you have a political party embracing a constitutional instrument that has been availed to the public to now set a pace for legislation. Because like he has rightly said, what we now have is like not just a proposal, it's like a position paper to do with what is very critical in the discourse of Nigerians' history and our present and the future. And one has to really commend the APC for catching the bull by the horn, to really come up with this kind of agitations or put them together in a way that the National Assembly could now have what we call like food for thought. Like you have said, the National Assembly will welcome all these kind of giant strides, not only from the APC. The PDP also has the same leverage. The PDP can also come up with an initiative like this. But the fact still remains that the APC set the pace, and every other party can now follow. When you now talk of things like this, especially when you are discussing critical matters like devolution of power, issues to do with true federalism, I don't want to say true federalism. When you now begin to say true federalism, you are now becoming subjective. As far as I'm concerned, as far as the Constitution is concerned, you are talking of federalism is federalism. True federalism or restructuring, I think these are lexicon that I cannot actually commend. Issues to do with federalism, devolution of powers, fiscal federalism, and the sharing of governmental powers among national and subnational governments. These are very critical issues, especially at the timing point when our political history has been bedeviled with a lot of ethnicity, religious contentions, and what have you. These kind of affiliations has what has set this country in what one can call in a melodrama. And I think to address that, we must have to face these things. One thing that we must essentially address is the fact that most of these things that I've touched are basically constitutional matters. And when you are discussing constitutional matters, certainly you cannot just do it offhand. You must play by the rules. We have a document that is called the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And whatever is intended for the Federation of Nigeria is spelled out there clearly. So when you have need or there is cause for you to now look at the setting itself, you must have to make reference or recourse to the provisions of the law as contained in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. For instance, the issue of federalism. Like I said, I don't want to say true federalism because I don't believe there's any false federalism as well. What we have is federalism as contained in the Constitution. Basically, Section 43 sub 3. Section 43 subsection 3 of the Constitution is what spells out this thing and says that there shall be a federation called Federal Republic of Nigeria. There shall also be states in the federation, and this number of states have been spelled out in the Constitution, numbering 36. There shall also be the FCT, and also the third tier of government, which is the local government system in the federation. These are what we call the federating units. So if there is any agitation or any contention to begin to tinker with these suggestions or these provisions that are contained in the Constitution, certainly you can just not do it alone without recourse to the institution that is bestowed with the responsibility of making laws, and that is obviously the National Assembly. I thank the chairman of the committee by really taking it the right way and said that it's never a finality. It will only be final.
Just 1.5.
It will only be final when it gets to the right place where issues of finality can be discussed based on the provisions of the law. Even as for federalism, the issue still continues. And when you have issues to do with sharing of powers among the national and subnational governments, they are still to be determined as prescribed, as may be prescribed by the National Assembly.
Before I go to Agbese, he used a point here, said, we don't need to play politics with this, because we're looking at the bigger picture, Nigeria. Whichever, whether process violated or process not violated, this document is coming to the National Assembly. And in your view, being the melting point where this document will either pass through or 24 recommendations scaled through or reduced. Now, if I ask you, what should be the body language of the National Assembly in this? Should they play politics? Because the bigger picture here is Nigeria. At the National Assembly, I believe if you throw a bomb there, it will not select which political party you come from. Everybody there are Nigerians. So what body language do you anticipate?
You see,
politicking or the document?
Absolutely, whatever we're doing, especially with due respect to my leader who is here, If you look at even from day one, when the leadership of the National Assembly was set in the immediate past, you know how it came about. It was about Nigeria. I don't want to say that we disrespected the party, but it was a leadership that came into being as a result of consultation across political parties. Like in the case of the Senate, for instance, you have a deputy Senate president who is a PDP member. So I want to say without any fear of contradiction that any document that comes to us for legislation, we look at it first as a neutral document, and we operate as neutral people, and we always identify ourselves as Nigerians first before any other thing. And when we come to make legislations, we are not making laws for ourselves, and we should not be expected to make laws for the APC or make laws for the PDP. We will be making laws for Nigerian nation, and we'll always look at it from that perspective.
Okay, I'm
no
happy,
doubt about that.
Philip Agbese, you are a pro-democracy activist on this set. Now, process, consultation, true federalism, restructuring, devolution. Looking at the entire picture, what are your comments, the bigger picture, Nigeria, and this document coming at this time?
Well, thank you very much. I want to say that we, the common people of this country, we are beginning to be afraid, you know, of the politicians and even the political parties. This coming at this time, I don't see anything wrong in that. And I also want to say that it is not time for us to commend the APC, because what they have just done is a mere suggestion, mere expression of opinion. Somehow, other political parties are not happy because probably for strategic reasons, they have done it at the right time, or because they have failed to do it in their own time. I want to go back to what my friend and brother from the PDP has also said, and I'm shocked because for a party that ruled this country for a period of 16 years to begin to wake up now, you know, to return back to the common people of this country with propositions that are being made by another political party is like a man who has repeated a class. He is now ready to do what he has been taught, or is now ready to listen to his teachers. It seems to look like the PDP of late have studied the APC in the last period of 3 years, and they are now ready, you know, to do. But I think on a general note, Nigerians would feel safer, you know, to still, you know, be tutored by the teachers, the APC, the way they are going about it, not to jump into conclusion with people who are around for a period of 16 years, and they want to now tell us that within the last 2 years, they've now learned a lot from the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, and we should give them the opportunity to come back and do better. And when people, you know, talk about the 1999 Constitution as a document that was not given to Nigerians by Nigerians, or was given to Nigeria by a military government, it beats one's imagination where, you know, they tend to derive such propositions from. Because if you look at it globally, even in the United Kingdom, the Magna Carta, constitutional development, or till the Bill of Rights and all the documents that exist in the United Kingdom, you know, even as an unwritten constitution, they are not just a hit, you know, from above. These are things that have undergone, you know, gradual political processes. And if you look at Nigeria and the United States of America today, we have a president who is actually taking things, you know, gradually from one step to the other, and a president that wants to do everything, you know, in 1 second in America. And you can see the result and, you know, the shame.
So in conclusion, what are you saying?
Yes, what I'm saying in conclusion is that the way, the gradual way, you know, that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, you know, is taking the issues of governance is what really should interest Nigerians. It is not really about the time that the political party is making propositions on restructuring, because in the first instance, the earlier noise about restructuring Nigeria, you know, was not the position of the Nigerian people. It was the position of very few selective individuals who felt disgruntled,
with the pace of development in the country, because it has been gradual, but we've been recording successes with the administration in some areas like security, the fight against corruption. And all of a sudden, people who were around for a very long period of time, who never saw anything with the 1999 Constitution, who even were in offices, benefited hugely, from the letters and spirit of that Constitution. They held political offices for a period of 16 years, some are still in office till date. They suddenly, that is the fear.
So give us the bigger picture. What's your position?
My position is that Nigeria is a work in progress. We must follow it gradually, and things are going gradually in the right direction.
Thank you.
So any attempt, to abruptly stop the train at this point in time is going to cause commotion.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Kaduna from here, but let's quickly take this call from Taiwo, calling in from Ibadan. Hello, Taiwo. Welcome to Tuesday Live. Hello, Taiwo. Hello, Taiwo. If you can hear us, make your contributions.
My contribution is I want to talk on what the PDP stalwart just said. Now, if the APC promised restructuring as one of their candidate campaign to get into office, now this is why have they not taken that position since?
Use this pen. Any paper?
Until 2018, just a few months to election. So is it not just a way of just diverting Nigeria conversing for votes, and then just at the end of the day, this issue will be dropped? So the issue is that is it a thing that the APC government will push to conclusion before 2019 election? So it's not sure that it will not be as if Nigeria again will be fooled or cajoled, thinking the party is serious about restructuring. So this, which I want the panelists to discuss, and APC, they make sure that they see this issue to conclusion before election date. Because if after election this thing is not completed, and then they use it as means of getting votes from the south, because this is what the southerners want. Issue of devolution of power, issue of restructuring, and even part of it as the state police. So if this thing is so dragged, and then after canvassing and winning the games, if it is, at the end of the day, they will drop this idea again and become another rigmarole. So that is my comment.
Okay, thank you, Taiwo. Maybe could you quickly just react to that before we get to Kaduna?
Yes,
you talked about the fact that APC came up with this as a ploy to win votes by next year's election. That's the summary. What Taiwo said.
First of all, the important thing is we are talking about the reality on ground. Don't forget that in the course of our campaigns in 2015, we had this issue on our party manifesto. It's contained in our party manifesto in the first instance. And secondly, a lot of noise was being made about it, as if we are not conscious of it. But the point here is that we forgot so quickly where we were coming from. When we came into governance in this country, we know how bad the situation was. Be it the economy, be it insecurity, be it the issue of corruption. We knew we had a serious matter on our hands. And the important thing here is, how do we address these challenges at the same time accommodating all the promises made by the party? So while addressing the issue of insecurity, while addressing the issue of the economy, addressing the issue of corruption, we felt also we should address the issue of federalism. The issue of restructuring, whatever name you give it, the issue of devolution of power, because a lot of people have started talking about it as if the party was not conscious of that fact. We now decided as a party to take the bull by the horn, to take a bold step, to do what has not been done before. For a lot of people, it was a major gamble.
So it's not tied to elections.
Yes, it's not tied. What would you tie it to elections? That's why I said when I started, I said, the important thing here is about the Nigerian state.
Okay.
It's about the Nigerian nation. We must, when it is necessary to play politics, we play politics. But when it is necessary to talk about the life of this nation, we must place Nigeria first.
Okay.
And that's why when the chief whip of the House of Representatives was speaking. He said something very fundamental here. He said, the moment any issue comes up, that every legislation in the National Assembly is about Nigeria, it's not about the party. The moment they enter into the chambers, yes, they are politicians, they protect party interest, yes, but there are issues that go beyond party interest. It's about it's just like talking about the market.
Okay, so
when everybody is going to go to the market.
I'll come to you, Ario. Let's take this call from Williams. Williams is calling in from Calabar, Cross River State. Hello, Williams. Welcome to Tuesday Live.
Hello.
Hello, we are hearing you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I so much enjoy it. Makes me go down if we must forget those things. During Obasanjo September, there was a document that was meant to be approved and so that you will continue. And also that document, there was just information inside. And today, we're having a great party as APC taking up something similar to this, if I must say. And this has also attracted the attention of many Nigerians to the previous committee, previous report by June, we talked about this same issue, and which have not been implemented. You see, it's very funny. I will look at it as a strict instruction. I call it strict because if I must ask you a question, I don't mean to insult anybody, but at some point, like social media trying to trending in social media that the chairman of this committee was at some time refusing this devolution of power and all of that. If that must be true, I'm happy that he has returned to look at it as a problem. Now I direct this problem to this other fact to my gentleman at his opening speech, claiming that some Nigerians wake up at this time to begin to talk about resource control, that and all of that. You will remember that during Obasanjo, the then governor of Akwa Ibom State took federal government over 13% derivation, so he did not start to say. Please, the gentleman on the, I've just forgotten his name, but he was saying that some people just wake up to stop what the agency have just put in place. So I'm not in support of that because before now, a lot of people have came up. Even the IIPOP people came up as a result of saying that they are not representing well, and that also called for restructuring. And the Southeast people also came up with same complaints. These complaints are all over the place, pocketful, handful, if you must call it so. Then I'm surprised that a gentleman at this young age that we all are will not support us to build this country in a way that sentiment will go far from it and all of that. It makes me scared.
Hello, thank you, Williams. You've made your points. Now let's go to Kaduna, where His Excellency the Governor of Kaduna State is on to us through Skype. Your Excellency, the question I need to put to you, but you have to react briefly to the last caller's point. He said sometime somewhere you didn't believe in restructuring, you didn't believe in this, but today you are chairing a committee towards this. But my question to you is, resource control has generated so much debate. We have to move on in this discussion now. We have had our opening thoughts. Now, what is the stand of the committee on resource control? Can you make it clearer?
I'll be very happy to. But let me respond to some of the observations and comments made by Williams from Calabar and others. First of all, I think what Nigeria is facing is an existential crisis, and we should not take it lightly or try to politicize it or try to look at these very serious issues with levity. I make this appeal particularly to members of the PDP who are intent on sustaining the narrative of the loser, because I'm out, let everything come down. This is a very serious issue. We want to build a nation, and we should look at every issue with great objectivity. People say that the military gave us a constitution. That is not true. This constitution was derived from the 1979 constitution. The 1979 constitution was drafted by 49 Nigerians led by Chief F.R.A. Williams. And after the draft constitution was published, it was put through a constitutional assembly of elected Nigerians representing the people of Nigeria. That was how the first presidential constitution of 1979 was introduced in Nigeria. I was in university then. Some of the people in the panel may not have been born, but I know how the first presidential constitution came into being. That's one. Secondly, the 1999 constitution is 80% of the 1979 constitution, just a few changes. And the changes that took place went through the same process of constituent assemblies and so on and so forth. Every constitution has to be enacted by someone. 200 million people cannot write a constitution. So those that say because a constitution was put together under military rule, it's not a people's constitution, are just being too clever by half. Okay? I think it's important to lay that foundation before I go further. Secondly, people have said that Nasir El-Rufai as an individual is against federalism. That is totally false. I am a very extensive writer. I have published books. I have written articles. And the last article I wrote on federalism in August 2012, long before President Jonathan even thought of a national conference, was titled Nigeria, a Federation Without Federalism. It was published in This Day and is online. You can go and check. My views about federalism are very clear. What I am against are people who have made restructuring their meal ticket. There are some political dinosaurs, people that have lost relevance, that have made restructuring something that they shout to regain relevance and to also get monetary allocation. We know these people. We can name them. This is what we are against. Thirdly, people have accused President Buhari of being against restructuring or true federalism. That is not true. That is totally untrue. What the president said in his New Year's address was that though people talk a lot about restructuring, he was of the view, he is still of the view, that what we need to do is to improve our internal processes of governance. Even if we have the most perfect constitution on earth, if the political actors and those involved in the process do not respect it, it will not work. That was the president's point, and it remains a valid point. We will work to improve our constitution, but people's attitudes and national interest must be shaped in a way that people put aside their selfish interests. So I think it's important to make this point to respond to various points made. Now, people say that we came, we brought this report at the course of election. That is absolutely false. Okay. Look, what we came into office May 2015. What did we inherit? We inherited an economy in recession. Who put us in recession? The PDP. The profligacy of the PDP, the levels of corruption was what put Nigeria in recession. What should be our priority first? The president put economic revitalization as priority number one. Internal security. Boko Haram is another legacy of the PDP. The president had to address that. Okay? Thirdly, we had high levels of corruption, from fuel subsidy corruption to all kinds of things. $2 billion for weapons being used for electioneering. These are facts of life. So when President Buhari's government took over, it had to look at its campaign promises on the one hand and the plethora of legacies, bad legacies led by the PDP, and prioritize what to take. Okay? Boko Haram was attacked and decimated. We pulled Nigeria out of recession within 3 quarters. 3 quarters we got Nigeria out of recession. It took Brazil 12 quarters to get out of the recession. Okay? These are the hot burning issues that we had to address. Having settled down, and when the president came back from his medical vacation, we thought this is the appropriate time to now address this issue of true federalism, restructuring, devolution of powers, and whatnot. Our intention was to submit this report at the end of October last year, but because of the overwhelming response we got from Nigerians, even analyzing the data and the memoranda to get an honest assessment of what Nigerians feel, took time. And we went a step further. We drafted bills for each legislative action. This has never been done in Nigeria's history. The PDP ruled Nigeria for 16 years. They have had 2 conferences without any bill to amend the constitution. We have done it in 2.5 years. I think the APC should be commended rather than criticized. Those that say that we are doing this because of election are getting it wrong. Those that assume that the clamor for restructuring is a southern clamor are totally wrong. They should look at the report and see that in every part of Nigeria, people want restructuring. In fact, there is more heated demand for restructuring in the northern parts of the country, many aspects of restructuring, than in the south. We went round, we've had the people, not the noisy elite, not the political contractors who take an issue and try to make money out of it. Our report reflects the voice of the people, and people should read our report and criticize the content and the context, not try to play politics with it. We have democratized this process. We opened our platform for everyone. We didn't exclude the PDP. We didn't exclude the Senate. We invited everyone to join. The National Assembly sent representatives. The House of Representatives sent representatives. The Senate did not. They chose not to. That is their business. We wrote letters to every political party, send us your views. We published in newspapers and in radio, inviting memoranda from everyone, no matter what political affiliation he is. And we collected these views and translated them into 24 areas for rebalancing the Federation of Nigeria. We did this with all sense of integrity and sincerity and putting the national interest. And I think that we should focus on that. But now, coming back to your substantive question about resource control, what did we recommend? We have made the most fundamental recommendations on getting the Nigerian Federation right in that area. We said, 1, all minerals, including oil and gas, shall be vested in the states of the Federation because under the Land Use Act, the states own the land. Okay? So any mineral or oil, gas, anything below the soil in the territory of the state should be vested in the state. This is a major recommendation, a major movement from what we have now. But we went further to say all offshore resources, mineral resources, oil, gas, minerals that are in the exclusive economic zone and the continental shelf belongs to the Federation. This is in conformity with international law. Everything in the international waters of a country belongs to the national government. There is nowhere in the world we've seen where oil, gas, minerals in the continental shelf and extended economic zone is vested in literal subnationals. It's a property of the government of the Federation because it is policed and protected by the Nigerian Navy. So this is a fundamental recommendation. Now, if the states own the oil and the gas and the mineral and the land, then we have achieved resource control. We have made recommendations on derivation. We have said derivation should be reviewed and Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission should be empowered to review derivation rates and submit to the National Assembly for legislation. Right now, the Constitution just says a minimum of 13%. It does not say who initiates and how to get this done. We have suggested constitutional amendments to vest that in the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, which has a representative from each state of the Federation and the FCT. So we've made this fundamental recommendation. But in addition, in order to rebalance our Federation, we have looked at 10 items that are currently on the exclusive list that only the National Assembly or the government of the Federation can legislate. We have moved them to the concurrent list, which means the states can also legislate on them. This includes prisons, police, food, drugs and poisons, labor and industrial relations, including minimum wage. We believe that every state in a federation should determine its minimum wage based on the economic activity in that state. We've made these fundamental recommendations in the overall interest of the country. Now, if you look at all our 24 recommendations and the actions that we have recommended to be taken, you will find that it is all give and take. Okay, there are some recommendations that will favor some parts of the country. There are some recommendations that some parts of the country may find disfavor with. But that is how to build a country. That is how to balance the federation. And the 360 members of the House of Representatives and the 109 people we have in the Senate are representatives of the Nigerian people. They have the mandate elected to amend the constitution, to amend any existing legislation. And when they do that, if it is the constitution, these amendments go down to 36 state houses of assembly to affirm or reject. So in that process, every Nigerian is involved through its representatives. Now, those that say that we are bringing it at the rather late are wrong. The chief whip of the House of Representatives can tell you that if the National Assembly wishes to take these draft bills that we have presented, even tomorrow, they don't need to wait for the party. They don't even need to wait for Mr. President to send it to them. They can take our report as private members' bill and begin the process of constitutional amendment, and it can pass. And this can be done in a matter of months. This National Assembly has shown the will to be able to amend the constitution. There are amendments already that are before the state houses of assembly. So this is not something that will take time. And those that think that we are doing this for politics should remember that we defeated them in all these states. The PDP man talking about middle belt. What do you have in the middle belt? We swept the middle belt. You didn't win one state in North Central. In the entire northern region, you have only 2 states, Gombe and Taraba, and we are taking those 2 in the next election. So what are you talking about?
Thank you. Quite explicit there. Even if when you throw a question to a politician, he must always play politics along the line. Quite explicit, I must say. Now, from the response by His Excellency the Governor of Kaduna State, let me take this question to Agbese. Now, let's look at Nigeria as a federation. Let's look at the structure of the constitution before now: exclusive list, residual list, concurrent list, and now this committee has moved some items from the exclusive list to concurrence, meaning truly some states that have been complaining of economic viability have been given some rebasement to take off. Given this, what is your projection if truly these recommendations go through at the National Assembly? What will Nigeria look like, looking at the center, the federating states, and what have you?
Well, we cannot completely say that a report of that committee is what is needed to take us to the promised land. We have sets of leaders in Nigeria today that have refused to do the right thing. Some of these recommendations, talking about the exclusive list, the concurrent list, are things that are being supervised by individuals like you and I, people that we have voted. We are still where we are today because persons who have been elected or appointed, to do their duties, they have abdicated their responsibilities. Take, for instance, the issue of security in Nigeria. Nothing has been, no new legislation has been made for the Nigerian military to record this level of success that we have witnessed in the last 2-3 years. It has to do with competence. And if we take the best constitution from any part of the country, if we bring it down to Nigeria, with some of these leaders that we have in the country today, nothing will still be done. It is about people. Nigerians must be patriotic to prepare the affairs of Nigeria as patriots, not as who they are, not as El-Rufai, not as Dixon. I was, some days back, a governor in one of the states in Nigeria was saying that in 2019, anybody who comes to you that is not telling you about restructuring, don't vote for the person. And you begin to ask yourself, is everything right? Because these are people who have even not been able to make do with the available resources to them.
The point I ask is, yes, if all this proposal goes through at the National Assembly and implementation begins, which I believe by which time maybe the elected representatives who are in the public domain to serve Nigeria would have been applying it, will the state perform better, or would they be more viable?
I stand to be corrected that it is not about any document Nigeria as it stands today, there is nothing wrong with our constitution. There is nothing wrong with the present structural governance that is in place. What is wrong is the competence of the people who have been elected, even those who are failing to be speaking for their people and are not doing the right thing.
So how do we correct that, John Ward? How do we correct that in one word?
Fantastic. In 2015, Nigerians took a very major step, in rejecting, despite the amount of money that was in public domain, money being shared, took a very major decision to appoint a man that they felt was competent. To elect a man they felt was competent. Okay. So it is about Nigerians, and that is why in a democracy, elections, periodic review, they are very, very important. So if the present administration is able to build institutions, that are able to give Nigerians that sense of belonging, where Nigerians are able to participate in the democratic process to make decisions for themselves, I believe that we'll be able, as time comes and time passes by, we'll be able to elect people that will do exactly what we want.
Okay, thank you.
Now, okay.
Let me hold you there. Thank you. Now, we'll continue. We can see that we have a direction now. We have left the formative stage of this discourse and we are heading somewhere. The bottom line is that a document has been submitted. The document is not a finality. The document is going through a process. Whether the process is right, but there's a process ongoing. Let's take a break now. When we come back, I think we'll continue. And I think I want to start with Atoye. We'll take a break now.
There's love.
Thanks for staying on to the program Tuesday Live tonight, and we're looking at devolution of power in Nigeria. I told you at the beginning that it is an interactive program. Right now on our social media platform Twitter, there are a lot of reactions from the social media, and Nigerians were reached on the streets to give their views. Before we continue with the studio discussion, let's take the views of Nigerians on the issue.
Well, it's a good idea, but let them support President Muhammadu Buhari in restructuring what he's doing, in fighting corruption. Is another way of restructuring.
If the power can be shifted from the center, then there will be less attractive and there will be more development. There will be government presence. You understand? When the power is concentrated, everybody coming to Abuja every month to come and collect money. White people there, most of the state cannot even pay salary.
When people talk about restructuring, I said, oh, can anybody raise up his hand and tell me that the present system we are having now, it didn't have any representative there? You have your representation. And if your representation is there and they are not performing well, don't blame the system, don't overheat the system. Blame your representative. They are the one to defend the people and protect the interests of their own state or region, what have you. Before we talk about devolution of power, let's go to states. There are states in this country where they have godfatherism. They dictate. As soon as further allocation comes, they will just sit down and share it within themselves, and that is all. Tell me when you now give total full power to that person.
The people at the grassroots, they are not really feeling what they are doing. But if there is restructuring and power is given to maybe the local government, they are closer to the grassroots. They will be able to implement programs that people will feel the impact. So that is why I'm in support of it.
I strongly advocate for restructuring so that the power will move around, so that there will not be anything like center again. Let the thing divide around.
When you build the house, you started foundationing. The foundation was not foundation well, the house cannot stand. But presently, administration is trying its best.
Well, those are the views of Nigerians, and it follows suit with what we are discussing in the studio here. A couple of tweets have come in. We will take that. There's one particularly addressed to His Excellency the Governor of Kaduna State. Before we go to him, let's take on Atoye. Atoye, now, one of the concerns to recommendations by the committee, rather than advocate creation of more states in Nigeria, the committee talked about merger of states. What's your view on this?
Well, thank you very much.
We're looking at you from the perspective of a Nigerian and a party man.
Yeah, you see, I appreciate that. First, I need just to respond to Madam Nasser El-Rufai.
Briefly, we don't have all the time, yeah.
First, if you don't want to play politics with restructuring through federalism, you will not domicile this exercise in the affairs of your party. So by taking it from the norm where the other previous governments, what they did, it means that you decide to play politics with it by domiciling it. I mean, within the APC to drive this, so people are going to read politics to it. And you see, there is a place of sincerity and conscience because if you say some certain things about my party, I have the right to react.
Malam, we're not doing altercation.
I know. No, not altercation.
We're addressing an issue that concerns
but
Nigeria.
you see, on this process, so that Nigerian can understand the import of what we're talking about. Yes. Malam Nasir El-Rufai, probably I don't know about my people here, were all PDP made. Malam Nasir El-Rufai himself was made by PDP, and everything that Nigerians have got to know about him today was things he did during the PDP. Yeah. Now, you see, why I'm saying this is that that's very, very important is that so that people can appreciate the place of sincerity of purpose. Remember that the president went to Kaduna to commission a project in Kaduna State because he valued that project. 1995 Political Reform Conference was declared open by President Obasanjo, former president now. President Jonathan declared the 2014 confab. Why is it that President Buhari did not declare the APC exercise open if he values it? You see, it is what you consider as a premium that you think it's an important exercise. That is when you're going to invest your trust in. And the president made this statement after APC had already set up a committee working on restructuring or through federalism. That was when the president made this address, because I want Nigerians to see through this. And you see, we also have to be very careful when we are condemning others and we're also trying to reprobate. You said some people were talking about restructuring, were not sincere about it, all sorts of things like that. You were coming from PDP, who also was talking about restructuring. But now you are now talking about restructuring.
Is that we have addressed this. We just have to move on.
Okay, like what you say.
I just told you, let's now look at the issues from the committee. And the people are listening to the program, they're following you, can hear even the reactions from the public. And some absolutely are with you, some absolutely are what the committee said. So now I just said, what is the position, your position now on the committee said, instead of creation of states, let's merge states. What is the economic viability of that now?
No. You see, it's viable because you see, in the PDP, what they just did was to take something from the 2014 national confab, because we made a recommendation to make the whole arrangement to be flexible. That if states who think they are not economically viable can march together, and operate as an entity, or if there is need to also create local government. I mean, to create more states, and you can sustain yourself. Because what we have realized is that in order to balance, it's just like what the chairman of the APC committee, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, said, that there is kind of a give and take. That's exactly what they took also away from the 2014 confab report, so that it's a flexible exercise. So one thing we have to realize is we've been in 51 years in wilderness after we aborted the regionalism. And there's also something I also want to appreciate based on these questions you've asked me, which I want my brother to realize is this. When you are coming from somewhere and the journey is not progressing well, you have to look at where you are coming from. That where I was coming from is actually better than where actually I'm going. Now, why am I saying this? You see, when people gather together in Arewa House in Kaduna, when they talked about Nigeria and the history of Nigeria, they always tell you that their best moment was when Sardauna was the premier of northern Nigeria. When people gather together in Southwest, they will tell you their best period was when Awolowo was there. So also in the eastern part of the country. Now, what happened? What was obtainable when that thing happened? Because we had regionalism, and some certain things worked. That was why I believe that Malam Nasir El-Rufai took us through the critical lane about explaining the brief history that actually led us to this part about issue of restructuring. So I want my brother to get that very well, that if something is fundamentally wrong with our structure and our system, forget the fact that we continue to sermonize about the moral aspect of this. We need to restructure this. If we don't restructure this system, this country is going to collapse on everybody. I agree that there need to change in attitude, but you've forgotten that the same Nigerians who are performing in some international organization within Nigeria will also perform poorly when you put them in our civil service, simply because of the kind of structure under which we operate. So we need this fundamental structure, and that's the issue of the state we're talking about. There is no sense in any state operating when you know that you are not economically viable. The essence of governance is development. It is not to maintain politicians where people are using siren or sort of what we are using to maintain our politician is simply not sustainable. And if you look at what we're talking about here, the issue of what the Deputy Senate President referred to feeding bottle federalism, where people sit down in Abuja to share money, it's not going to last. That is why you see most of the states are owing salaries, and they are worth. They continue to demand for bailout, and it's going to be like that until we're able to come out of this logjam. So basically, I believe that there must be that synergy. There is no need to maintain a House of Assembly that is not bringing positive results to the people in terms of economic aspect of life. There is no need to maintain 36 state governors when we know that we don't have enough money, enough resources to be able to cater for our own way of life as Nigerians. Government exists for the people and not people for government. And that's one thing we have to get. And if we agree, you see, that's the only area where I believe that we can talk about taking away politics from it. We must agree that we need to own this nation. We must agree that we need to actually do what is in the best interest of the Nigerian masses. Because the problem that we're facing, that some people are seeing, because one thing I've always said is, the only way to secure your peace is to defend the peace of others. If you don't secure the peace of another person, when it comes, because that's what we call this law of mutation. The problem you see in Maiduguri, if you don't join hands to quell it, before you know it's already at your backyard. And that is the way to do what we call nation building. Unfortunately, had it been the APC participated when President Goodluck Jonathan invited them to the table, because I know Malam Nasir tried to get that very well, where this thing actually started from. So he should not accuse people without also taking responsibility.
I think you have addressed
What I'm saying is that when we initiated it, had it been APC had participated, probably would have been a process of implementation.
But you have made a point about the issue of merger of states.
Absolutely. Okay, it's a welcome development.
We'll still do this. But we'll go to Kaduna once again. But before then, let's take this call from Jalo, calling in from Yola. Hello, Jalo.
Hello, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Yeah, my contribution to this debate. Before I go, I want to say I really appreciate the discussion that is going on, and it's talking about Nigeria. But my contribution is I want a clause in the Constitution of Nigeria to be repealed. Thank God the chief whip is there, and the chairman of APC is there, Malam El-Rufai as well. The clause in the Constitution that says everybody is innocent until he is proved guilty in the court of law. I want it to be repealed so that it will be everybody is guilty until proven innocent in the court of law. This is one of my submissions to the development of Nigeria. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Ali, you got the message directly there. We'll go to Kaduna quickly. There's a very important tweet here that he has to address. That tweet is coming in from Olusegun Olushola. Your Excellency, there's a tweet here which is addressed directly to you. Just need some explanation before we continue here. It says, does at El-Rufai mean other resources aside oil will be put in custody of states where they are found? I am not clear with his position on those resources will be restructured, if those resources will be restructured.
It was very clear.
Well, I think that our recommendations are very clear. Every resource in the soil belongs to the states. Okay? Apart from oil, gas, and minerals, I don't know what other resources he's talking about. That's our recommendation. It's a fundamental change. It's a fundamental shift from what is now the constitutional and legislative order. And if the National Assembly legislates that, then each state will have a measure of control and licensing of its those to exploit its oil, its minerals, and so on and so forth, which currently is exclusively done by the Ministry of Mining, Federal Ministry of Mining, or the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. That is very, very clear in our recommendations. Now, I want to use the opportunity of many to make a few clarifications. First, I'm sick and tired of some of these PDP people saying that Nasir El-Rufai was made by PDP. That is totally false. PDP didn't send me to school. They didn't educate me. They didn't train me. Okay, I was in General Abdul Salam's administration before the PDP, and President Obasanjo invited me to serve a PDP government through. But to say that PDP made me is totally false. I was Minister of FCT. I did things there. If PDP made me, how come when I left the FCT, none of the people that PDP appointed were able to do some of the things I did? It is pathetic to start saying this made you. I served under President Obasanjo, under a PDP government. But to say that PDP made me, you don't know who you're talking about. Go and check.
We have gotten your point, Excellency. Actually, let us move on. We are now addressing core issues in the committee. And one of it, clearly, before we come back to Abuja, because we have to gentlemen we need to react here, is what the committee said about local government autonomy, to be or not to be.
We do not think, after looking at all constitutional conference reports and looking at federations all over the world, that there is any federation with 3 tiers of government. A federation is made up of 2 tiers. And any solution that makes that local governments a 3rd tier of government will lead to fiscal anarchy and will create imbalances in the federation. As a state governor, I can tell you that I have experienced that. One of the first things I did as governor of the state was to say we're abolishing joint account. We will just sit one meeting, 5 minutes. Every local government will get its own funds direct from federation account. We got into crisis. We found that we had to be dipping into our pockets every month to subsidize local government that are unable to pay salaries. We're subsidizing local governments between 15 million to 38 million a month. So those that think that giving local governments autonomy or paying their monies direct from federation account to them is a solution, should take a second look. And we believe that a federation consists of 2 federating units. In this case, it is clear from the feedback we got that the federating units that Nigerians recognize are not regions, are not geopolitical zones, are not local governments, but states. And the federal government. These are the federating units. And so what we have recommended is, yes, we must have a democratic local government system, and that should be guaranteed in the Constitution. But local governments should be designed according to the circumstances of each individual state by the State House of Assembly. So in essence, revenues will go to the states with a formula for distribution to local governments, and the local governments, the state can create as many local governments as it wants. It can also design a local government system that fits its particular cultural, ethnic, religious, and other diversities. This is what we've recommended.
Now, let me go to Dogowa now. If we want to take on local government, then we will not exhaust this program. But he has given some good explanations there. But maybe you want to chip in just briefly. Yeah.
I think just briefly, like you said, issues of local government autonomy, or local government to be or not to be, for us as an institution, because I have to always get myself guided by the position of the institution I represent, which is the National Assembly. We must always be guided as representatives of the people in the National Assembly. We must always be guided by the yearnings and aspirations of the people of Nigeria, who are in a way, our employees. And the fact continues to remain the same, that we believe in local government administration. They should continue to exist. That is the institutional position of the National Assembly. And even recently in the constitutional amendment, the National Assembly has jointly passed not only the continuation of local government administration, but the autonomy of local government administration as well. It has to be autonomy because we believe it is one vehicle, democratic vehicle, that will really convey developments to the doorstep of our people.
I believe by the time this gets to the National Assembly...
This has been the position of the Nigerian people, and we are representing them. Wherever we find ourselves, we must have to be sensitive to the plight of our people. I want to tell my senior brother, my brother in Kaduna, who is the governor of Kaduna State, that issues to do with local government administration is like a concluded matter as far as the National Assembly is concerned. And if they're coming for they're canvassing for any change in that position, I think it is going to be a very difficult one. We have taken a position in line with the aspirations and the desire of our people, and that is our position, and it's like a finality. And I don't think no amount of lobby will change the position of the National Assembly. It will remain the same. Let there be local government administration, because we believe they are vehicular instruments that will deliver progress and development to our people. Okay. And they must have to be autonomous. Even the governor, I think, was playing politics about it. Whether you like it or not, Nigerian governors will always want to take advantage of the revenue or resources available to local government in the name of joint account, which we have to fight against. The fact remains the same, that we have a statement, a pronouncement in the Constitution, which must be respected, that we have 3 tiers of government. And it does not matter whether other states or other federations or other countries world over have the same peculiar arrangements like we have in Nigeria or not, but the fact is that we have this pronouncement, we have this provision in our Constitution, and we must have to hold it sacrosanct.
Okay, I believe you started your politics from local government level.
Something, no, not actually, but I'm a grassroots person.
Beautiful. Let's take this call from Umar, calling in from Benin Kebbi. Hello, Umar.
Yes. Good evening to you all. Yes, much has been said. You see, it was unfortunate that in Nigeria we have many politicians in our leadership rather than many leaders in our politics, honestly. And the whole issue is about the Constitution. We allow the Constitution to speak for itself. Even if we amend the Constitution 1 million times, as long as we did not allow the Constitution to speak for itself, we are not going anywhere. To be candid. And with due respect to His Excellency, the Kaduna State Governor, up to today, the local government administration in Kaduna State has been subsidized. There was no election. Is that how the Constitution says the local government administration should be run without conducting election? So what are we saying? There were even some states that create what they call joint account board, trying to legalize what has been fundamentally illegal and unconstitutional. So as long as we do not allow the Constitution to speak for itself, we are not going anywhere. It is not a matter of amending the Constitution. It's a matter of the operators of the Constitution to allow the Constitution to speak for itself. And this is the problem that we have in Nigeria. And that is why we see this kind of politically motivated killing. Many state governors colonize local government administration, and most of this problem can be solved locally. If they are to be tackled, they can be tackled locally from the local, if there is vibrant local government administration. And that is why we miss the link. And if I can agree with anything, devolution of power, is I would agree between the state and local government. Our state governors were superpowers. They colonized everybody. Whatever the Constitution gives them as power, they have gone beyond that. And that is the problem of Nigeria. May God continue to bless our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Umar. Now, quickly, let's go to National Auditor of APC, Mugalu. Now, there are 2 tweets here which I need to direct to the 2 of you. Let me quickly take the tweets now. Now, a couple of them, just to inform our viewers, if I didn't take your tweet, know that you asked questions or reacted out of context. But anyone that is within context will take it. Although some have been addressed already, I'll just mention it for the sake of democracy, because it's a participatory program. Now, one of them says, it's been addressed, APC should not single-handedly restructure Nigeria without including all Nigerians, because national issues are not party issues. The so-called consultations made was not inclusive. It's just politics considering blah, blah, blah. Just to emphasize that briefly. Is it an APC thing?
No, it's not an APC thing.
Absolutely.
You see, it's not an APC thing at all. Because we created the enabling environment. And if you listen to the governor of Kaduna, His Excellency El-Rufai, he told you that even to the extent the letters were written, people were given opportunity. They created a platform that was open to all Nigerians. Nobody was restricted from using the platform to make contributions. Memorandums were sent. And that is why, in an attempt to make it all involving, these things they took them to the 6 geopolitical zones, created opportunity for people to come, gave civil society groups opportunities for people to send in those who couldn't come in person, sent their views. They had an social media platform that gave people opportunity to make contributions. And again, few days back, like I said, it was brought back again to the public domain when it was presented to the public. An opportunity again was still created for people to make input. Because like we have all agreed here, this matter, everything that is being done now is like collating views of various persons. Eventually, it will get back to the National Assembly where the final decision will be taken by the elected representatives of the people. That we elected and we have them seated at a particular point where they're going to look at these views. If you don't have, for example, when it's coming to National Assembly, it's not cast in concrete. It's going to be sent to them, and these people are representatives of various communities, various states, various local governments. And they will now have opportunity also to add views of their constituents if they are not originally accommodated in the document that we are sent. What we have done today, for which we should be commended, is that we have created a platform. We have created an opportunity to discuss a very sensitive national issue that if it is properly handled, will place Nigeria on the path of progress. And that is the intention. It is not political. We have no intention to politicize it. We want everybody to be part of it. We want, at the end of the day, the views of Nigerians will be properly accommodated and addressed. Whether you call it through federalism, whether you call it federalism, you call it restructuring, all these things are nomenclature. The important thing is that there are things we think should be done properly so that the governance principles for Nigeria will be so stabilized, so that institutions will be strong. It won't be about individuals. Because whatever we do, whatever we say, if we don't create strong political and democratic institutions, we're wasting our time. It's not about individuals. It's about institutions that will outlive all of us. Very soon we'll all leave the stage. Another set of people will come. If the institutions are strong, you can't change it. Rather, the institution will change you. Whether it is fighting corruption, whether it is infrastructure development, the important thing is that once our institutions are strong, Nigerians will key in. And that is what APC is doing today. We want to build strong political institutions that will outlive these present players.
Okay. Just also from Atuye, that one of your admirers says we should tell you that you're very patriotic. Okay, at this point, let's just take a break briefly. Okay, there's this call from, where's the call coming from? Okay, there's a call coming from Zaria before we go on break. Hello, you're on to Tuesday Live.
Yes. Good evening, all.
Good evening.
Yeah, this is Pedro on the line.
Go ahead, Pedro.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting discussion, and I'm really pleased about the happenings, but not really impressed, because you see there's something we are missing.
Could you be a bit audible?
There's a revolution coming up seriously that will consume people, and we'll be so sorry for ourselves if care is not taken. Because the way and manner most of these politicians are talking, using public address system and delivering messages that are not properly refined to the populace, is really having an adverse effect on the masses. Most of us who are residing in other places other than our state, we are finding it very difficult to be comfortable enough to remain where we are after utterances made by them using such medias like the Tuesday night and some other media. So what I'm trying to say is that no matter what you want to say, please ensure that you are defending what you are saying properly and you are making points that will sell home. But if you think you will just talk things and go scot-free, I warn ahead of time that when this revolution comes, it will consume and no one will be spared. It's not a threat. But I'm only saying this to you so that you understand that for any statement you make on the floor, you should realize that you are forming or destroying lives. So please, in order to avoid situation that will consume innocent citizens, try to be very careful with your statement. Going back to El-Rufai, as a matter of fact, there are so many policies that he's holding forth with, which of course we believe and identify with. But there's a problem along the line. El-Rufai, you are a first-class citizen. You are obviously a very super governor. But you should realize that everybody is not like you. You are in a theater where you are meeting with people who are half-baked type of people. You should be able to calm down a bit and make them realize what you are up to. You don't carry up a type of project, then abandon it halfway. I just wonder what the hell would make you refuse to go on with your issue regarding these teachers. These teachers that are...
Sorry, we're discussing devolution of powers, not teachers, please.
They should be allowed to rest.
We are discussing devolution of powers. Thank you very much, Pedro. Well, okay, we have made a point. I think Pedro was trying to go off track. He would have remained where he is. He can use on that platform to address the issue. We're discussing devolution of power. We'll get to Kaduna appropriately. But I think we'll take a break now. Okay, we're not set for break. Now, he raised an issue which I was about asking you. One other issue raised or proposed by the committee is the issue of indigenship, state of origin, all that. What's your thought on this? He has touched on it briefly, the caller.
Yes, he did.
Even if he deviated along the line.
Yes, but before then, I would like to take again the issue taken by the representative of the APC here, because it should be gotten clear. People should get this clear, that this unprecedented effort by the APC is not as if it's a new thing. It is an instrument, constitutional instrument that is available to every Nigerian, including yourself and every other individual or groups, to begin to come up with legislative initiative like this. It is a constitutional instrument that is available to every Nigerian individual or group, PDP or APC, ACN or any other party, so that you can now begin to initiate legislation that will now be taken like food for thought, which I said earlier, to the National Assembly. And when it comes to our table, like I said, we always look at it as if the APC as a party or APC as a group is now operating is taking a functional responsibility that will help us sustain the democratic system, where the National Assembly could, of course, count on their effort to make good legislations. But certainly there are issues. There are issues that may not necessarily work out well when even they come to the National Assembly. For instance, apart from the local government, something that you raised, and these other issues of indigenship and what have you, these are issues that we have already taken at various levels of our legislations. Bills have come up, especially private members' bills, addressing the status of a woman, for instance, that is married, a woman whose place of origin might be Enugu, but married to a Kano man. We have taken this. It is now a bill that is already receiving attention of the National Assembly. But that is not the most important thing. The most important thing for people to note is that some of these issues they have raised, just like my brother here has rightly addressed, I am also of the opinion that some of these recommendations made with due respect by my party are quite unnecessary. For instance, in the recommendation, there is this issue of not only merging states, the issue of maybe replacing one of the chambers of the National Assembly, that let us have a unicameral legislature. When in a situation like this, when you have a federal system of government, where you have minute ethnic groups spread across the federation, if you, for instance, remove the House of Representatives from the context and now allow the Senate to only operate, then certainly you are now not only disenfranchising, you are disengaging some of those minority communities who must be represented in the affairs of things of governance in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. For instance, if you take a senator where you have a law that says every state shall be equal in terms of Senate representations, in terms of only three members of the Senate representing each and every state, whether that state is big or otherwise. But you now come down a situation whereby 3 senators may not necessarily cover the spares, the geopolitical sphere of their state. Then they are now given a second opportunity to run into the House of Representatives, where smaller units, smaller communities can as well be represented. The reason why I'm putting this straight is that the only argument about replacing the House of Representatives, for instance, or coming up with a unicameral legislature is about cost. When you are talking of cost, you must have to also weigh the cost and the value provided by the institution. If it is about cost, I want to put straight to the people that the cost of maintenance of the National Assembly as it is today as a bicameral legislature is an insignificant cost to the total cost of the budget of the Federation. For instance, in the 2018 budget, I'm giving you this analysis because it has always been the argument that the cost is too much on the part of the government to bear a bicameral legislature. For instance, if you go to the 2018 Appropriation Acts now, the budget as it is today, the 100% of the budget, what you have for the National Assembly is only 1.4%. 1.4% of the total budget is what goes to the National Assembly. And when it gets to the National Assembly, it's not about the salaries of members of the Senate or salaries of members of the House of Representatives. There are other institutions you have in the totality of what you call National Assembly. You have the NILS, you have the NABRO, you have the National Assembly Commission. These are institutions that you must have to place the National Assembly in the right perspective. And you are talking of only 1.4% of the total budget of the country. So if your argument is centered around the issue of cost, that is why you now want to de-represent, because you are de-representing some people, de-represent some people in their own geopolitical space, then the cost argument does not hold water because you still have 98.6% of your total budget to do other things. If there is anything that maybe could attract the attention of people in terms of good governance or effectiveness in terms of financial management, then our attention should be focused on the 98.6% of the total budget of the Federation, not just 1.4% that goes to the National Assembly, where so many other institutional issues are being addressed with this same 1.4. And this 1.4 we have in the 2018 budget is just 125 billion naira, which services the salaries of members, salaries of senators, salaries of our legislative aides, and these basic institutions that we have to now galvanize or to now help consolidate what you call an effective legislation process, just like it's been found in other parts of the countries. And lastly, is the issue of resource control, for instance, has been canvassed by my elder brother, the Kaduna State Governor. Our fear is that, we are operating a federal system of government. A federal system of government that is also predicated on a lot of ethnicities and tribal divisions. So the fear is that as long as you don't concentrate powers in the center, and you now disengage or devolve powers to the state, the fear is that you will end up not only having very strong and godfathers as state governors, but you will now allow situations whereby the tail will walk the head, which is very ironical, and it will not work out for the kind of system we're operating in Nigeria. It's going to be very serious if we allow governors to be stronger than what they are now. Because you devolve powers, giving powers to governors, they will continue to have total control. Ethnicity will play out, tribalism will play out, religion will also play out. Okay. So a situation whereby the tail will walk the head will not augur well for our democracy.
Moving on now, let me take on Agbesi, then come to Atoye, because we're almost rounding off now. Generic, the entire exercise, that larger picture, what are your comments again? Looking at it from the perspective of the position of proposal for state police as against federal police, given the argument, because there are some persons who feel proposal by state police an APC thing. What's your position?
Well, state police, in my reckoning and recent experiences in the country where state governors have sponsored ethnic militants, to maim and kill political opponents, I strongly believe is going to be against the interests of particularly minority groups and dissenting opinions in the various states. And I would like to take you back to states like Anambra, Benue, and a few other states where these ethnic militants have existed in the past. We all have been, we've seen the level of bloodshed, that have been witnessed in these areas in the last, few years, precipitated upon the activities of these ethnic persons. So any further attempt, especially, I come from a human rights perspective, in a country where the rights of individuals are being trampled upon, by security agencies, and we are now going further to empower people who do not even understand the rights of their fellow citizens, to now have the right to take more away from them again, I think is in bad light. We must condemn that, and every Nigeria, and I am also sending this as a message to members of the National Assembly. They must reject this proposal from anybody, whether it is coming from the president, from the APC, from the PDP, anybody that is coming from, it must be rejected. Take, for instance, the issue of devolution of power. The governors who have made these propositions are so comfortable with powers, extra powers coming to them, but they are not comfortable with, you know, us operating the existing constitution that gives power also to the local government authorities, you know, to decide on what they do with their resources.
But it's not in the spirit of true federalism.
There's no such thing like the spirit of true federalism. We have a federating, a federal unit that is working for everybody, and everyone has been able to discharge one responsibility or the other. For instance, when we are talking about resource control, I strongly believe that as Nigerians, people should be more interested about the use of resources. Take, for instance, the 1.7% member of the National Assembly talked about, 1.4%. The 1.4% is not even a problem to Nigerians. What is the problem to Nigerians is where members of the National Assembly go overboard, you know, to pad budget. They want to carry out executive activities. And we have had cases where members of the National Assembly made demands of the executive to give them money for functions that, you know, they ought to have, you know, already appropriated funds for. And we've seen allegations, you know, before that members of the National Assembly were even given money by members of the executive, like the popular case of Aroma Ote and a member of the National Assembly. Somebody was giving money to carry out legislative oversight.
Let's just hold it briefly. Yeah.
Exactly. If you want us to discuss party, let's discuss party in the context of it.
Okay, fine. We are almost like winding up now. Let me take on Atuye. We have looked at the core issues. We have thrown the banters. We have shown our interest. But ultimately, we have all looked at one big picture, the picture of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We agree, we disagreed, we connected, we disconnected. Now, in your last thoughts, looking at this whole exercise, Nigeria and the future.
With all sense of modesty, I believe we are...
I know they will say interest is the issue now. Let our interest now be Nigeria.
Yes, Nigeria, we're all actors. But let me just say this, that APC should not beat its chest over this tokenism. Is the linear aspect of any position that has been done in any part of the world, taking to domicile constitutional review within the ambit of your party is just tokenism, and they should not be demanding for commendation from Nigerians. You know, we're still battling with fuel crisis here and there. But in all sincerity, we must agree that we have a nation that must survive. We must agree that time is running out on us as a people. We must agree that all of us must put certain things behind, that in nation building, it also give and take. There must be concessions. And I want my brother and some of the people to know that, you see, there is no way you can sustain a nation as big as Nigeria without having state police. It is not going to work. Either you have it now or you're going to have it later. That is the ideal of a multicultural, multi-ethnic nation. And Nigeria cannot be in isolation. We don't even have the federal police that can take care of our interests. And I also share the concern of the Honorable here about some certain things which he said. And I think, I know time is running out of work, I think Malam Nasir El-Rufai has not finished his work, should go back, consult with the legislators within the APC themselves, and still work out some certain things, because there are still some divergent positions, because they didn't really consult the National Assembly, which is not good enough. Thank you.
No, I think to put it on record.
Just a minute. You get there. Let me get to you put it.
As far as the House of Representatives is concerned, we were consulted and we had our representation on the National El-Rufai's report. But like I said, when we are operating in the National Assembly, we are operating as an institution for the nation. Okay. And it is one thing for the APC to come up with this report. It's also another thing for us to consider it as an institution and work in the interest of Nigeria. People must
also note, and the APC also to not. Hold on, it's a good point. It's a good important point. Let me put it clear. The idea is that the APC should know that they are coming with a very good initiative, but a little late. But the National Assembly, because the National Assembly may not contemplate going or embarking on a fresh constitutional amendment, they can only rush now through their caucuses, APC caucus in the National Assembly, or go through the presidency and come up with an executive bill that will help us address this thing. But that does not mean we are not consulted. We were fully consulted, and El-Rufai has done a very good job.
Yeah. So let's go to Kaduna now. We'll come back to you. Your Excellency, at least tonight you have demonstrated to the world that you are truly a Democrat, because a Democrat is the man who listens to tantrums given to him, whether they are correct or not. Your last word, it is very clear that we have agreed here that give and take, disconnect, connect. The bigger picture is the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What are your last words for Nigerians as this process unfolds?
Absolutely. Let me say that the 27 of us, with all sense of responsibility, did a job that we felt will promote Nigeria's interest. We are not there sitting as governors or as ministers or as legislators, but we tried to look at the overall national interest and the feedback we got as the voice of the people. Those that think that the purpose of this exercise is to make governors stronger forget that I'm going to be governor for a maximum of 8 years, and I will leave. So it will be foolish of me to create emperors out of governors when I'm not going to be there permanently. So this is not about making governors more powerful or making states more powerful and so on. That's one. Secondly, I advise Nigerians to read this report, because my brother, the chief whip, clearly has not read the report, because there is nowhere in our report where we considered abolishing the two houses of the National Assembly and making them one. There were memoranda submitted for people that wanted a unicameral legislature at the national level, but the preponderance of feedback we got from Nigerians is that they want the Senate and the House preserved. So my brother has not even read the report. And if, as chief whip, he has not yet read the report, I will advise Nigerians to read our report. It is not very long. It is just a few pages. There is a small summary of 60 pages, and the draft bills are in 60 pages. So I don't want us to be under any wrong impression that we are abolishing local governments or we are creating one National Assembly or whatever. I appreciate his advocacy on the cost of running the National Assembly. That is for another debate. But we did not recommend that there should be one house of the National Assembly. There is a reason why we have two houses, and there are very logical reasons. The Senate to give equality to all states, the House to give representation based on population, and it's rational, it's logical, and the existence of the two houses has nothing to do with the cost. Cost is another matter. So I appeal to everyone, every Nigerian, political actors as well as observers of our political process, to please take time, read our report, and send suggestions to their representatives. I believe that this proposed amendments to the Constitution can be passed before the end of the year, before our convention and primaries start. I do not think it's too late. I think if the National Assembly really wants to do it, it will be done, because the National Assembly should remember that they do not have exclusive right over constitutional amendment. It has to pass through 24 houses of assembly. And we have...
Yes, let's say, I just must thank you at this point, because time is really not on our side. I believe you have given your thoughts, and let me use the opportunity to tell you so much. Thank you for making your time to be on Tuesday Live tonight. You were more or less the epicenter of this discourse, because you are the chairman of the committee, and we appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Now, back in Abuja, let me give just 1 minute to the national editor of APC. Just your last words, please.
Yes, you see, like I want to align myself with what the governor rightly said. It's important that we read this document. You see, because what we have is a work in progress. It's not cast in concrete, like I said. As views come in, it still will be accommodated. Because the important thing here is that you can take some areas that are of particular interest to you. It mustn't be APC. It's not about us, it's about the Nigerian nation. You take areas, you can set private members' bill. You can get your representative in the House of Representatives or the Senate and then pass it through them. Areas of critical interest. The important thing here is that we must elevate our discourse. We must move it from the political sphere and move it higher to the Nigerian nation.
Thank you
so
so
that
much.
At the end of the day, the important thing here is what do we do to make this nation stronger? What do we do to build strong institutions that will outlive all of us?
Thank you so much. Well, a wonderful discussion, and I can be sure, even if the director extends the time by 4 hours, we'll continue with the discussion. To our participants, well, if your tweets were not taken, I told you maybe you went off track. The Twitter handle is bursting with all sorts of reactions, but I must say we don't have all the time to take them. We have taken as much as we could. Well, gentlemen, we have thanked the Kaduna State Governor for being with us. I must say thank you. Your thoughts have been very clear. We started, we connected, disconnected, and eventually we all saw Nigeria at the center of it. It was nice talking with you on a Tuesday Live tonight, and we believe truly that if the devolution of power exercise comes up, sometime, someday, we'll see true federalism in Nigeria. That's it on Tuesday Live. We looked at devolution of powers, and we are ended up now. Thanks for participating. All those who called in, we took your thoughts. All those who tweeted in, always be there on Tuesday Live. Thank you. Bye-bye.